an annual event that is going to get bigger. That was the Commerce Minister. Now let's hear out from the industry, because investors believe that funding has bounced back. At the startup Mahakumbh, Rajan Anandan, the MD of Peak 15, said that they are back to pre-COVID levels in terms of funding, and he added that the seed and Series A market looks very active. He also is betting big on AI, software and deep tech companies. Here's a slice of his conversation with my colleague Akhil.
How's the Josh?
You know, I've been here for the last 4 hours, and I can't tell you how excited I am. Startup Mahakumbh, which is happening today and for the next 2 days in Delhi, is the largest gathering of startup founders, of investors, of mentors, of policymakers. And I think over the next several days, we're going to see thousands of young students who want to start up come here, right? And there's 1,000 startups, Indian startups, that are actually here where they have a booth or a stall where they're talking about the companies. So last 4 hours I've met several, I think I've probably met 100 of the 1,000, and I can't tell you how excited I am, because the kind of innovation that we're seeing across every single sector in India is really, really exciting, right? There are 10 sort of pavilions, if you will, right? One's on climate, one's on AI, one's on consumer brands, one's on agriculture, and so on and so forth. And every single one of them has just amazing set of innovators that are, you know, developing companies, many of which we haven't seen in the world before. So I think that's very exciting.
What's the rationale behind sort of picking this number between $8 and $12 billion for this year? Are we back to pre-pandemic levels, and is it a new normal?
Yeah, I mean, look, basically we are back to normal. It's not a new normal, right? I think what everybody forgets is that the pandemic era was a very, very unusual environment where globally interest rates went to zero, $7 trillion went into the US markets. A lot of it flowed into every asset class. Crypto, you know, hit $3 trillion. You know, real estate was booming, private capital was booming, private credit was booming. So actually what we are back to is just normal. You know, I think we should not peg anything actually, whether it's funding, whether it's real estate prices, whether it's hopefully, thank God, like lockdowns, right? Imagine if you had to have lockdowns. Would you rather have $10 billion and no lockdowns, or would you rather have, you know, $25 billion and lockdowns? So what we're really back to is normal. So if you go back to the 2019 and prior 3-4 years, right, we were running at between $7 and $12 billion of annual funding. Last year was $7 billion. It was a little below normal. But the reality is between 2021 and 2022, India had $70 billion that got invested into startups, right? So if you say the average run rate was 10 billion, we had 7 years worth of funding that went into our ecosystem in 2 years. That's a lot, right? So it's obviously natural that we normalize now. And I think this year, you know, we land between 8 and 12 billion, I think, based on the first couple of months. But look, what I can tell you is, you know, we run an investment firm where we invest from idea through pre-IPO, right? We invest at every stage. What I can tell you is, look, the early stage market, the seed and Series A market, is very, very active. The growth market has been slow, as, you know, not just in India, by the way. The growth markets have been slow around the world because the best growth stage companies raised a lot of capital in 2021 at those sorts of prices. So either those companies are growing to those valuations, or maybe towards the end of this year, early next year, they will raise capital at same or slightly lower prices. So we think the growth market will come back, you know, whether it's a couple of quarters from now, end of this year. But look, the reality is India has $20 billion of dry powder between venture capital and private equity. That's 1.6 lakh crore, right, of committed capital that is not invested. And all of that capital is going to go into private companies.
What you've seen is the recent cohorts are being dominated by AI and deep tech startups. Is that a conscious thing to have more AI and deep tech startups in these cohorts? Or is it that we have more founders sort of starting up in AI and deep tech?
Yeah, so look, you're absolutely right. The last cohort of Surge, which is our 9th cohort of Surge, had over 65% of our companies were AI, software, and deep tech. Deep tech being, we had our first 2 semiconductor companies, we had a green hydrogen electrolyzer company, advanced manufacturing company. And similarly, if you look at our most recent 3rd cohort of Spark, which is the program that we have for female founders, you know, large number of AI and software companies. I think it's important to keep in mind that we don't look for a specific sector, right? We're trying to partner with the best founders who are trying to build very large companies, right? And cohort to cohort, you'll see this vary. So for instance, if you go to the 8th cohort of Surge, we had a large number of consumer companies, right? If you look at our next cohort of Surge, which will be towards, you know, just right after the summer, you'll actually see a very different mix. So we don't really set out to say we're going to have this many AI companies or this many deep tech companies or this many consumer companies. It really depends on, what are the companies at any given point in time that we partner with that we think are extraordinary entrepreneurs who are trying to build big companies. In fact, I mentioned this this morning on at the opening plenary of Startup Mahakumbh. In the US today, both startups and venture capital is all only about one thing, which is AI, and that's artificial intelligence. India today is about AI squared, but the first AI is all about India, right? Because what we are seeing is innovation across every single sector. Consumer brands, consumer vertical commerce, travel, gaming, healthcare, education, financial services. India has $1 trillion credit gap on consumer, $1 trillion credit gap on SMEs, right? Financial services, we have 25 unicorns as a nation who are financial services and fintech unicorns, but we're going to have hundreds of them simply because of the needs that the country has. And then you look at, so that's the first AI, it's all about India, but the AI squared, the second AI is about AI, which is artificial intelligence, right? So we have a lot of innovation in AI, but we also have extraordinary levels of innovation in every single sector in India, and we think that's a very exciting place to be.
Well,
for more news and updates, all you need to do is follow CNBC TV18 on all of our digital platforms.